Back again with another video, the most recent program I've received, and it's protected, but kind of not really with a real bag and board. It's Maryland basketball yearbook / media guide from 1974-75. There's Lefty Driesell on the front cover. Looks at the Terps traveling in the off season to the International Cup games, and look at the roster. Seems like for now it's in pretty good shape. Coach Lefty Driesell and his wife Joyce. Lefty still living retired down in Virginia. Here he discusses his offensive philosophy and his all-time offensive team up to that point. There's his defensive philosophy. Assistant coach Joe Harrington. Harrington would wind up eventually head coaching at George Mason, Colorado, and I believe Long Beach State. I don't know much about Dave Pritchett. Howard White was a former Terrapin player, but I don't think he wound up being a coach that I know of. There's the old Hungry Herman Terrapin logo. It's probably my favorite. Graduate assistants, there's Rich Porak and Bob Bodell. Rich Porak, who is a dentist here in town. If I ever would decide to go there, I'll probably bring this along and get him to sign it. There's opponents. Look at some of the players. Owen Brown, who was a star player for Maryland then. Billy Hahn, who was not a star player, but would eventually be an assistant coach for Maryland on their only national championship team. And would be, I think he wound up being the head coach at, I'm not sure right offhand. I know it was a Division I, like a low end maybe a mid major. Maybe it'll hit me before I leave here. Tom Roy, who was one of the Terrapins' top centers. This is the season after the great Maryland team that finished ranked third in the nation and didn't go to the NCAAs. That was when each conference could only send one team, and they lost that classic 103-100 double overtime game to the eventual national champion NC State. There's Mo Howard, who would eventually spend a season with the Cleveland Cavaliers. Why don't they stick it together? John Lucas, who would eventually have a strong pro career, All-American for the Terrapins. And Lucas his son, John Lucas Jr., has spent a little bit of time in the NBA. Lucas was the number 1 pick in the draft in 1976. There's Steve Shepard, who I think he had a cup of coffee in the NBA, but he was on the 1976 United States Olympic team that won a gold medal. Okay, here's our first problem. This is the middle of this has come out a little bit. The staples have come out, so but it looks like it's been that way a good while ago because it's come out quite clean. Not happy, but what do you do? It actually, if you look at it really closely, I don't even think it's the person. It's not the sender's fault or anything. If you look real close, these pages it's like the staple didn't go in there. So there may not be a version of this they all may have this problem. This is Brad Davis, who's a freshman, played for the Terrapins, and was eventually a number 1 pick of the Lakers. He disappointed with the Lakers, but he would be an expansion draft pick by the Dallas Mavericks and play there for several years, arguably the most popular player of the early Maverick teams. Don't remember much about John Newsom. This is the late Chris Patton. I'm trying to keep the pages that were not stapled in together. Chris Patton would wind up passing away tragically as he played for Maryland. It didn't happen in a game, I don't believe, but he had Marfan syndrome, which is an enlarging of the heart, and nobody knew it at the time. Okay, I want to set this over here so it's not flop over yet. You can see that's the problem. The staples, which are right there, just did not reach that part of the pages when this was being put together. The Maryland Radio Network. There's several stations locally, and look at the difference. Even Maryland, at the time, this was a pretty heavy television schedule. I mean, most of their ACC games are on television, but the rest of them were kind of hit and miss. Look at their Terrapins, then home at Cole Fieldhouse. Maryland basketball players enjoy first-class living conditions. Today, those would be considered probably downright Spartan. Social life at Maryland. The season-ending banquet with last year's guest speaker, Bill Russell. Lefties players in the pro ranks. There's Len Elmore, who played, and Tom McMillan, who played each of them a decade for various teams in the NBA. Jim O'Brien, who, if you look at Jim O'Brien in his Maryland uniform, he looks like he's 40 years old. There's Moses Malone, who first chose Maryland as a college and then is with the Utah of the ABA. Dick Snyder, who's the player that hit that running sideways jumper in Game 7 of the 1976 Eastern Conference semifinals to give Cleveland a victory over Washington. J.C. Jones, then there's Bob Ferry, who they are all watching a game. And let's see, Tom McMillan's older brother looks at what some of these people have moved on after leaving Maryland. Gene Shue, who coached several teams. Quick look at Maryland football and Jerry Claiborne. We've talked about Terrapin football. Athletic director Jim Cahoe. Terrapin's scoring records to that point, at that time, the all-time leading scorer was Tom McMillan. Just some statistics. Lefty Drizel. Although I forgot about that. That was a story. Lefty and another gentleman, two other gentlemen, as it says here, saved 10 children from a fire when he was vacationing in Delaware. Let's see Dean Smith do that. And there's some scores of what Maryland used to host, the Maryland Invitational Tournament. You know, where a lot of schools would still do that to this day. They'll invite 3 schools. It's usually them and maybe one other decent schools and 2 smaller schools that are there for the paycheck. And there's the Maryland team records. And it wouldn't be a magazine, it wouldn't be a program, magazine, or media guide without a car in it. In sports, the Gremlin. What an awful looking car. Yuck. And then on the back there's John Lucas heading up the court with Tom McMillan trailing as the trailer, and someone number 50, doesn't look like an ACC team, on the court. So there you go. This is the 1974-75 Terrapin yearbook. Mildly disappointing that the pages come out like that, but when you look at it closely, there's not much you could do about it. It certainly wasn't the sender's fault. And you have to be, other than that, pretty happy with the condition. There's a little wear on the front, but nothing that's going to kill you. And look at the low-cut shoes of the era. Wow, the literal lefties wearing low-cut Chuck Taylor Converse. It looks like the players are wearing an Adidas of some type. So, thanks for watching. If you want to read the blog at thoughtsofrs.blogspot.com for sports and about me and whatever else you might be interested in. Haven't written much this week because I've been busy and frankly a little unmotivated. Better get off my rear end and do something about that. If you wouldn't mind hitting the subscribe button, I would appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and we'll be back next time.